Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's Product School webinar. Thank you so much for joining us today. So just in case you didn't know, Product School offers product management certificates online and at our 20 campuses worldwide. And on top of that, every week we host some amazing local product management events, and we also host online webinars, live streams, and Ask Me Anything sessions in our Slack community. So if you're interested, head on over to productschool.com after this webinar to check them out. Today, we have an awesome guest presenting with us. I'd like to introduce you all to Bosky Mukherjee. So Bosky is an experienced leader, entrepreneur, and product manager with a passion for growing businesses. She has also worked with a variety of domains like finance, software, and technology. Bosky is the founder and CEO of Spark to Substance, a product management and design consulting and coaching company. Previously, she has held several product management roles in startups and local organizations both in Vancouver and Silicon Valley. She has remarkable leadership skills to enable her to scale, analyze, and drive teams to success. Combined with that, she's very creative and always encourages innovation in her team. She shares her knowledge with the community as an advisor and mentor, but also is a passionate speaker at events. So feel free to leave Bosky any questions you guys have or in the comments section on the Facebook Live, and at the end, we'll address as many as we can. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Bosky Mukherjee. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Nikki. Thank you for having me. Hello, everyone. Yeah? Hi, everyone. Are you able to see my screen? Can I just get a show of hands, or Nikki, if you're able to confirm?
Yep, your screen is great.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Awesome, awesome. I'm just gonna try to make this full screen just so that it's easier. Hi, Nikki, thank you for the intro. I will go over, who I am and what I do just a little bit more in the next slide. But the topic today is one of my favorites. It does come up in a lot of panel talks, and I do hope that it is something that is in everyone's minds as well. And it's really about debunking some of the biggest myths in product management, some that may not seem too straightforward, and some that probably you might have heard before. So we're going to be looking at debunking some of those in today's webinar. Just in terms of what are we going to do today, again, the myths, we're going to be going a little bit about the superpowers in product management. And we will be unpacking the topic of the fit that exists between product management and the company culture. We've often heard product market fit. We don't quite hear the company culture and the fit that is needed for product management to succeed. So we'll be talking about that a little bit, and I'll be sharing some of the tools that I've been using over the last 16 plus years with myself, as well as in my teams, to assess when that fit might get misaligned. And then, of course, question and answers. So a little bit about myself. As Nikki mentioned, I do serve as a fractional chief product officer or a fractional product executive in a lot of growth stage companies. I also coach individual product managers or managers of product managers and executive team on product management and growth strategy. I did have my own run with severe burnout earlier this year, and it's become my personal mission to help solve the burnout epidemic. So if anyone's interested, please reach out, and we can kind of talk about that. Burnout is real, and I would never want anyone to go through that lonely experience and feeling lost and rejected ever again. So that's like a personal cause to me. So just before we jump into all of the topics, I just want to know a little bit about yourself. There is a Slido poll. So if you have your phone, if you just go to slido.com and enter the code pound N618 that you see on the screen, I just want to know how many of you are product managers, how many of you hire product managers, and how many of you may be perhaps fitting in some another. Can you please do that? Okay. Okay. Okay, awesome. So a big portion is, okay. I'm going to go with that. So it's a pretty much like an even split between people who are product managers, a small percentage of hiring managers, and then there is the other. Okay, so the tools that I will share at the end should help hiring product managers also, as well as the product managers. And frankly speaking, the folks who belong in the other, could also apply and tweak that tool, perhaps to see the fit between your specific role, or if you're interviewing for a product manager role. Yeah. Okay. So let's move on. So debunking the biggest myths. This did not come out of my own anecdotal evidences or anything. I did do a poll a few months ago as I was preparing for another talk, and I reached out to my network, and there were 118 product managers and product leaders globally, who responded with their biggest myths. And out of the 30-ish kind of myths, I selected the top 5. So the first myth that I hear, and I see a lot, is all companies that sell products also need product managers. This becomes really, really true, especially as the hiring for product managers has increased. It almost becomes where any company that might think they have a product, or they actually have a product, at irrespective of what stage they are in, they seem to be needing product managers. And it's not true. It really depends on what outcome and what is it that you're looking to accomplish, and what kind of skill set is needed. Because at times you may not even need a product manager. And if you hire too early, or if you join a company too early, it doesn't quite end well. It could be that perhaps you need more of a project manager versus a product manager. It could be that you don't need that hire at all at that time, and it's a little bit too early. So this is one of the myths that I do see quite often. I'm going to go a little bit quickly over some of these, and then if there are questions, we can kind of dig deep into that. Someone needs to have a product manager title to be doing product management. No, oftentimes, especially in the startup world, you do find founders, kind of having the vision for the product, perhaps also building the product, and he or she does not have a product manager title. Sometimes even in post-startup companies, you do see people in success or marketing or sales, or sometimes even the CEO doing product management without having the title of product manager. So a lot of times what I tell people joining my team is that you don't need to have the title. A lot of the times, especially on the research and the discovery stages of building a product, it can be a shared responsibility between the PM and the designer as well. And the designer does not have a product manager title. At the end of the day, product management is about crafting those beautiful experiences and products that solve a real problem in the marketplace. And yes, there is a craft, and there is a process, and there is a way to do it, but essentially you don't need to. Yes, you do need to have product managers at certain stages, but it can still be done without having the title. This is one of my favorite myths. Good product managers ship a lot of stuff. In fact, there were 2 companies that I joined quite a few years ago, and one of my OKR and success criteria for the role was how many times I shipped. It did not depend on whether what I shipped ended up in increasing engagement or increasing the user base. It really didn't matter. It really mattered how many times I was leading the release. And so when you start hearing these kind of conversations, please do stop and try to unpack that. It really doesn't matter if what we are shipping does not get used and does not help either the user, our customers, or our company. This is again one of my favorites. We can make engineers deliver faster. A few weeks ago, I was working as a fractional product executive in a company, and the CEO mentioned to me that one of the biggest problems that they have is that they're not able to deliver faster within their engineering team, and that they needed product expertise. And I had to have a heart-to-heart conversation with the CEO to help them understand what what does product management do and the kind of value that they could offer versus where some of the other problems are. Something related with this myth is also another parallel myth, which is any kind of the dysfunctions that exist in the company can be solved by having a product manager. Sales is not selling enough, it's a product management problem. We are losing a whole bunch of customers, perhaps the retention programs are not working the best, but we don't seem to ask that question. We straight away jump to product management. The next myth is something that, this is the last myth that I want to share, is that people you work with will always like you. As a lot of you know, product management also means that we do need to say no a lot of times. The way we say it, again, it depends on how much you're going to be liked or not, but we do have to say no. And if something that's really important for us is making sure that people like us, it is hard to be a good product manager in that role. And so we have to be okay and good with people, who might not like us and who might not be friends at work. It seems really simple, but I've seen firsthand with one of the product managers that I'd hired really, really struggle in the role because that person, it was really important for them to be liked at work. So give me 1 second. Okay. So with that, I want to talk about the superpowers now that we've covered the myths. And these superpowers are these superpowers in my mind that take a product manager from just being, meh to someone great. So before we delve into that, can all of you please answer this poll again? So please go to slido.com. You should be seeing the next question. And I want to get a sense which cartoon character best symbolizes a product manager. You can submit multiple answers. Any takers? No? Is the poll working? Nikki, are you able to see that? Oh, there you go. There are no cartoons here. Okay. Interesting. Okay, awesome. If we would have done this in a face-to-face, I would have really wanted to know the reason why some of you have chosen, the cartoon characters. But product management, a lot of times makes me feel like I might be having aspects, or I actually long to have attributes from these superheroes or these cartoon characters a lot of times. And for me, the way and I did see one of the response, there's no right or wrong, but the product management role often feels like being a Spider-Man. And that is, because of really simple kind of, one of the simplest attributes is that with great power comes great responsibility, but not a lot of authority. Yeah. And so if given the fact that we are in a role where we have a lot of power to be changing the course of the product, irrespective of what level of product management authority we have, there is a lot of responsibility lying on our shoulder. We don't have direct authority over a lot of people. We really need to work collaboratively and bring people from across the different teams and functions together and rally them without a lot of direct power. It needs a lot of different kind of superpowers. And the reason why I call them superpowers, I'm not talking about prioritization and how best to do a roadmap. I'm talking about really some of the soft skills that is an EQ power that we need in order to go from meh to great. So my first one is hypotheses or anecdotes versus actual user behavior. And I've been guilty of this as well, where I relied early on in my career on anecdotes, things that people in the company might have said or I might have seen without really looking at the data or going on assumptions or hypotheses, versus actually seeing what a user does. It is a well-known fact that as humans, we are complex creatures, and often we may say something, but when it comes to actually doing it, we do something very, very different. And there are countless cases and examples on this. And if you were to go on my website, you can probably read a blog on this as well. Um, the second superpower is tell versus show. Again, I've also been guilty on this, but I've kind of learned since then. There are a lot of product managers who talk a lot, whether it's, or even executives. There are a lot of situations where the roadmap is conversation versus something that is visually shown and shared and transparent, or the prioritized backlog, or what's happening in the next release, or what are the customer pain points. Instead of telling and talking, demonstrating and showing. There is also sometimes, depending on which company you are in, there is a perception a lot of times that product managers don't do any work, they're just attending meetings. And I think, and I believe that some of that might be coming from, I think, the perception that we talk and we don't show, because, engineers code, versus product managers, what do you do, right? So I think, if you can demonstrate and show them, with different visuals and visualize and be a storyteller, it works often much more better than actually just talking. This is, again, really, really important, rigidity versus being mindful of process. Product management looks very different in every single company. It looks different and takes a different shape based on who product management is reporting to. We all have our biases, and there is no escape as long as one acknowledges our own biases. It also might depend on what stage of the product is in, or it might depend on some other events and other things that have happened in the company or overall. And even though there is a framework and there is a process that defines how good product management needs to be done, if we are very, very rigid about following every single step of the way and doing it in that particular way, it often causes friction. And as long as we're mindful of the process and we're able to apply and tweak it based on the context, I think that goes a long way. An example of this is quite a few years ago, I was working in an organization and it was a moonlight project. And my recommendation was not to do all of those documents. This is like years and years ago, where there were tons of documents that needed to be done in order to initiate a product development effort. And I wanted to skip, a set of like 20 plus documents just because it did not make sense. I was going to have to repeat the same thing over 20 documents. And I asked if that could be done. And I was told that it is better to be wrong and consistent than be right and inconsistent. And of course, I did not stay there for too long. But that's what I mean by being, mindful of a process versus rigidity. The other one is inside out versus outside in. It's very easy to fall prey to the thinking or the ideology that we can just kind of go with what I know, or just talk to the internal teams and build what is needed in the next version of the product. We don't need to ask our customers. We really know what's going on, or we did this mega research 3 months ago. And so we don't need to, the marketplace and the user needs are changing and the people are changing, the market is changing. And so I think that kind of complacency doesn't do well. It's really, really important to have a balanced viewpoint and never forget, who we are building the product for. We are not the end user of the product. We are not the people who are making the purchase decisions for the product. we are not even researching that our own product. And I think that kind of thinking does harm how we build consensus and truly build something amazing for our customers. This is again something that I think truly speaks to the next superpower. And if you look at the image, I would have loved again to hear your point of view if I would have done this in person. But when you look at something, the first thing that comes to my mind when I saw this was an elderly couple. But if you were to look at it carefully, you can see that there is a woman here and there is a man playing a musical instrument. And yes, there is another woman out here standing. And it is all about perspectives. And that is one message that I definitely want to share here when it comes to the superpowers. Everyone has a viewpoint because everyone is looking at the problem from their vantage point, from their viewpoint, with their lenses, with their biases. We are looking at the problem also with our own biases and our viewpoint. One of the most critical things that product managers can do and should be doing is to bring multiple viewpoints to the table and help with making the best decision, the right decision for the customer, given the amount of data that we know at this point of time. And it's about facilitating those decision making and facilitating those trade-offs that need to be made. And for that, we really need to be conscious of the fact that our perception needs to be really wide. And related with that, it's about myopic view versus seeing through different vantage points is the last superpower that I really wanted to focus on. And if there are any questions, please, again, as Nikki mentioned in the beginning, please do start entering them in the chat window so that we can go over them. So the next, we've talked about the myths, we've talked about some of the superpowers, and now I want to really talk about this fit that needs to exist between the company culture, the team culture, and product management itself in order to be successful. I'm actually running a poll or a survey on LinkedIn. So if anyone is there, and if you do have a chance, please do fill it. And I'm really trying to understand, there's so much of hiring going on in the field of product management, and it does really make my heart swell with pride and with happiness because this is, I'm really passionate about product management, but I also see a lot of frustration. On both sides, the company as well as with the product managers. A lot of product managers are leaving the companies or get highly frustrated very soon. Like it doesn't even happen 6 months, 9 months after being hired. It happens like before the first 3 months. And so what is going on? And I really wanted to kind of understand what might be happening, not just in Vancouver, but also in the other cities that are known for product. And what I've found, talking and coaching a lot of the product managers, as well as working with the executive team, is that there is this, this fit, just like, the holy grail of product management is to achieve that product market fit. In order for product management to succeed, there is the concept of the role readiness that needs to be there. If you hire someone too early, or if the organizational structure and the cultural makeup is not ready to support product management will never thrive. Because it is a known fact that companies will still survive somewhat, but they will still survive if they don't have product managers, right? The other functions could probably take over some of the responsibilities and the company would still be functional. It's not like they would have to shut down. So there is that delicate balance that we need to be aware of and all of the things that go around it. And so what are the characteristics of that fit, right? The way I see it is that the product manager fulfills and satisfies the need in the organization that exists for product management, not just for your boss. Your boss may love your work, But if the rest of the company is not happy with what is happening with the release, or with how it was released, or with a whole bunch of customer calls that happened, with how the customers came to know about the release, it's all going to come down to the product management, right? Again, it depends from company to company, but usually that's what I've seen. So it's not just important to satisfy what's the needs of the organization is and from your boss's perspective, but also overall. As a product manager myself, it should really power me up to wake up in the morning and go to work. This is like the delight moment. There's should not be a foreign concept to the product management managers here. We do like to measure, right, and assess whether the product that we are building does cause delight to our customers. Just like that, our role should also be delightful, and we should have that delight moment in our role every day or every week. And it should be better than some of the existing alternatives in the market. Oftentimes, even in my career, I would have a few bad days at work and I would be like, I need to leave and I need to find something else, only to realize that the next alternative that I was trying to pursue would probably be in a very, very similar situation. And, again, it would be maybe a 3-month or a 6-month period of harmony or honeymoon period, but I would probably end up in a similar kind of a situation. And so, that fit that needs to exist really needs to fill these 3 criteria in my mind. There might be some other criteria as well, but just what I've kind of seen, these 3 are really, truly important. And the reason why I'm going to be sharing those 2 tools with you is, this is one of my favorite quotes, and I think there is a debate whether this was truly an Einstein quote or not, but I'm not going to go over that. The quote is, we can't really solve the problems by using the same kind of thinking we used when we created them. So we need to change our mental model when there is either dissatisfaction or stress or just the disharmony that exists on both sides, the company as well as the product managers. So there are 2 tools that I want to share. One tool, just like the end user or the customer delight, it's a simple poll. I call it the Sunday night delight score. The reason for that is oftentimes I've seen, and also, with the people that I've kind of coached, is that Sunday nights is when we start worrying about the Monday morning, about either being with the people that we don't quite necessarily gel at work, the work itself, the boss, or it could be just the product we are kind of building or whatever else is going on in the organization. And we often kind of start talking with ourselves or talking with our partners or talking with our friends or journaling, whatever that means is. And we just talk, right? And what this tool does is that it's a very simple tool. You can do it every Sunday night, every Sunday evening or afternoon, whatever that is. Choose a day. Typically Sunday is when I would recommend to do it, and plot it so that it's not just in your mind or in your thought. Plot it. For some of the more ambitious folks, you can put it in Excel with your date and see the pattern over a week. And if you see, it's just a simple scale 1 to 10. 10 is freaking awesome, 5 is kind of meh, and 1 has never been worse. And if you see that pattern where you are 5 or under for a period of like 3 months, 6 months, you know that it's not going to change. Either we ourselves are not ready to change and adapt to what is needed in the organization. I don't espouse to the fact that it's always the organization that's wrong and we are always correct. Like, there is that misfit between what we are looking for and what the organization is able to provide at that time. Or it could be that there's, either side, there's something that is not working. And so please, this is an awesome tool. Try to do it. You can even do it right now. So I do see, 3, 8, 7, 1, 5, 4. The folks who are 5 and under, I would really request you to reflect and think of why. Why is it 5? What are some of the things? Maybe do it next week again. Don't try to do this. Don't try to use this tool for past, only for the future. Try to do it a few times. You don't have to wait for 3 months. Try to do it for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and see. If you're kind of really at a last state where you are very unhappy and you've been unhappy for the last like few months, then maybe do it every day for a week and see if that situation improves. Just like in product management, you're looking at enough data to be able to make a call and see what that is. So, hopefully this tool is something that you're going to find helpful. The other tool that I wanted to share, so this is what it really looks like, right? So how satisfied are you with your current role on a scale of 1 to 10? So the second one is, it's for people who are already in a product management role in a company, and they are somehow in that state where they might not be fully satisfied or delighted in their role, happy in their role, where some things may have changed, some things, just whatever situation that you might be in. Or it could be for those people who are looking to interview for the next PM role, and they're trying to assess whether they should really be joining that organization or not. And on the hiring manager side, this tool can also be used in order for you to make a decision whether this is the right time for hiring a product manager. Yeah. So it's a simple 2x2 grids, and I'm sure that as product managers, we are all very familiar with 2x2 grids. And it has two dimensions. One is the internal pain, and the second dimension on the y-axis is the fit. So the fit is really a combination of the strategic fit in the business, the cultural, the environment in the company. And the x-axis is really the internal pain, the pain that might be coming. It's going to differ from organization to organization, but typically some of the pains I've seen is, the decision making is too slow, or you end up releasing things that no one uses, or maybe there is a blocker where all approvals need to go through this one person. Or maybe the process itself might be so convoluted, or maybe no one knows, where the roadmap is, whatever that internal pain. And we try to plot this 2x2 grid. And so these are the questions that I would, kind of encourage people to ask, both on the hiring side, the hiring manager side, as well as the product managers, whether you're in your current role and unhappy or whether you're interviewing. So when the internal pain is low, and the fit is low, the questions that both sides should be asking is, do you actually have a product? Are you doing bespoke software where maybe something has not been productized? Maybe something is way too early in the ideation stage, specifically in the startup world, perhaps. That is your environment, right? So these are some of the questions you should be asking, right, in terms of determining the role readiness. When the fit is still low, but perhaps the internal pain is kind of really increasing, then the questions that one should be asking is that, do you have the environment, the right environment to support product management? And this could look like from having a seat at the exec table to perhaps product management being recognized in the organization as a function that does deliver value. And everyone knows, at a high level what product managers do. There are no, these kind of friction points, as product managers are only attending meetings. We don't know where the roadmap is. Product managers are just like an overhead, or a whole bunch of these kind of conversations kind of don't exist, right? So that is the right environment. There is the other situation where the internal pain is low, where things are still being done, nothing is being hindered or slowed down, you're building the right stuff, and the fit is also high, the fit is high, right? In that case, the questions that need to be asked is that, is it getting close, right, where we would need to have a product person, I'm just going to call it a product person, in the team. But the more important question is, at what level of hire do we need? Do we need an associate PM? Do we need someone senior? Do we need to bring in a product executive? Do we need to bring in a product coach? Maybe we're not ready to do a full hire right now, right? And then the last one, of course, is that when the pain is high and the fit is also really, really high, and then the question is, okay, so this is the time now, let's do it, right? Um, so, something to think about is, what would you do if you were to think about in your current situation, whether you're interviewing or you're in your current role or you're looking to hire and fill? What are you going to do across each of those quadrants? Where is your current company and team in? What kind of quadrant does it fit into? And then try to make a decision. So, for example, if you're in this first quadrant where the pain is less, the fit is less, as a PM, my question, would be, is it a right time to join? Can you just postpone joining? Maybe look somewhere else. It's no point if you're doing project management, but you're really a product manager. The two roles are very different. To the hiring manager, please postpone hiring. If things are working, why look at bringing someone else with a role that does something very differently? Hire for the right role, or just postpone the hiring and distribute the work with the rest of the team if they are able to do it, right? In the second quadrant, if you already have the environment somewhat, but the pain is really high, if you need to join as a product manager, please do try to understand and assess who is the person who is representing you and is going to be vouching for you and sponsoring you at the exec table. How is their philosophy to product management? Do they like to take credit for all of their work, or do they try to give the credit to you when you have done something awesome? How do they think about scaling the team? Can the team scale in the current company? What does that runway look like? If you are somewhere here, when you're thinking about what level of hire, as a hiring manager, you might want to think about, well, do we need to bring in, a director level person as an example, who then builds out a team? Or are we going to be bringing in a hands-on director, let's just say, and then over time, we're going to be asking that person to build out a team? Is that person who's at the director level, are they ready to be hands-on? Or have they been so much out of it working at the high level that it's going to take them a lot of work to be doing hands-on work? Or do we really want to bring in someone like a PM or a senior PM and grow them into that role, and what kind of a runway we're looking at? It's not fair on either parties to be bringing in someone too soon and then setting them up to fail. Would this be an opportunity to be working with a product coach or a fractional, product executive, where we don't need a full-time hire right now, but perhaps just to get the ball rolling and set up the groundwork so that when the time does come to hire product managers, we have a much greater chance for success. Do's and don'ts, again, this specifically comes around the interviewing tactics, decision making on both sides. You want to really understand how decision is made in the company that you're interviewing. And again, for hiring managers, try to ask questions so that you're able to understand how that PM that you're interviewing, they make decisions. What to look for. Are they making decision always by consensus? Are they just making decision by committee? Are they looking at data to make the decision? A lot of these different things. Try to understand the expectations from the role. Again, both sides. Are you looking at making an impact, or are you looking at someone, there was this PM that I was coaching, and he was really frustrated after joining an organization because every time it was like, well, I need you to help us. I need you to help us. And there was no impact that role was, or he was able to make. And he was really beginning to feel very, very frustrated because he did come as a senior PM. And so try to understand the expectations and ask questions in different ways so that you're able to understand whether whether an organization is hiring just because they need an extra body, or whether this role will allow you to make an impact. And the same way, as a hiring manager, you really want to understand what is the candidate's expectation of the role. What are they expecting from you as a manager to do? If the candidate is expecting to become a senior PM in 3 months, and this has happened, this has happened a few times, then you want to assess and ask yourself if you would be able to provide that kind of a growth opportunity given where the company is. Ask about what is the perception of the product team in the organization. How do others think of the product team? Are they a value added team, or are they a team that just exists because of whatever random reason, right? And try to understand if they're inside out versus outside in that we talked about. Is the atmosphere or the environment toxic? Try to understand the product team structure. Are they scrum teams versus feature teams? There's a big difference. Try to unpack a lot of these areas during interviews, or as situation changes, to figure out if both sides there is that fit. And that's how we kind of reach the culture product management fit. Again, I was giving this talk in one of the universities here in Vancouver, a little bit of a different topic, but I did share some of these tools. And this product manager, she's a senior PM, and she was, just chance had it that she was interviewing. And she was interviewing in a company, and one of the first questions that they had asked her was that, do you have a PMP certification? And she said no, and she continued with the interview process. But after we did that workshop at that university, and she kind of withdrew her application. And you can see that she's written that, right? Because it made her, using some of these tools in the context that you're in your real life as you're making your own life's decisions about career and roles, it helped her to think about whether that team, that company, was ready for product management. Clearly, they were looking more for coordination work versus product management work. So I just wanted to share that to kind of show you the power of using tools like this in your decision making. And so with that, I know that I rushed through a lot of these points, but I do want to open to any questions and answers.
Hi, Basi. Thank you so much for that awesome and informative talk. Okay, so we do have a couple of questions. Unfortunately, we don't have too much time left, but I have one question in the Facebook comments. So Conrad says, what's the difference between feature teams and scrum teams? And I thought scrum teams are generally encouraged to be feature teams as opposed to component teams. So.
There is a slight difference, from what I've seen. Very, very slight. I think it's a thing of subtleness and nuance. Scrum teams, the way I've seen, is that they both work in an agile environment, and that's where the name comes from. But they are more kind of the focus is more on ensuring that they're following their respective Scrum process. They each have their Scrum backlog, and that entire routine kind of goes with them. Feature teams, what I've seen is that they might be working in Scrum, but the feature teams are more, the way they work is slightly different. They're more looking at the value or the outcome that's going to come from the things that they ship. That is a little bit of a mind shift or a mindset kind of a change that I see between Scrum teams and feature teams. Feature teams also kind of rotate, and they're not always set in stone. So you could have, I could be part of the feature team this quarter, and then next quarter I could go and be a part of a different feature team. Scrum teams, usually what I've seen is that they are usually set in stone, and they are there until you go and change a different team. Feature teams are also self-sufficient, so they will typically have a PM, maybe a designer, or maybe the designer is shared, QA and your dev there, and DevOps potentially, and they're able to release those features, functionalities, or outcomes by themselves. Scrum teams will have a lot of shared, so I've often seen one PM shared across 2 Scrum teams, if that answers the question.
All right, thank you. And I think that is all of the time we do have for today, but thank you so much for that amazing talk. I think there's also a couple of questions in the Slido that you posted about going from a technical to product role. If you want to answer that real quick, and then we'll go ahead.
Sure. I've put in my my contact information here, so if anyone has more questions, please do reach out. I moved from a technical to a product role. I do have computer science undergrad and grad. I did do my MBA, not to move into product. I did move into product before that. But product managers come from every single background possible. I think moving from technical to product, or any background, but specifically on the technical side, I think it's really about acknowledging our biases. And again, I'm not going to give any technical answer. Courses and all of that is there. Coaching courses and all of those tools are there. But especially when you're coming from a technical background, being a computer science grad myself, I know that I did have one of my biggest biases, and I see this a lot with other people, is that our default state is actually in solving the problem, right? We just jumpstart in executing and solving that problem. When you are a product manager, and if you want to be a really good product manager, you have to love the problem first before jumping into the solution mode. And whether that problem is the right problem, how big is the problem, is it the right time to solve the problem, that problem space becomes the part that we do spend a lot of time. And so when you're especially moving from a technical to a PM role, if you're able to either navigate that bias easily, or please try to see what tools or what kind of support you might need to help you navigate. It's not an impossible chasm to cross, but it does need that acknowledgement and knowing how you might be able to cross that. If I've seen PMs who don't quite like being in the problem space, and they love to start solving and bringing those ideas that are there into fruition. A lot of the work that product managers do also is rejecting ideas, and so, or even trying to just do a whole bunch of discovery and then parking that idea and saying, it's not the right thing to do. Again, that becomes a bias, right? If your personality or your bias is such that you have to see majority of the work that you do into the hands of the customer, then that becomes something that you're going to struggle with. So again, courses are there, coaching is there, mentoring is there. Take care of some of the softer side of things, and then that makes the transition even more smoother. Hopefully that answered?
Yeah, that was a very thorough answer. Thank you. All right, well, thank you so much for presenting today, Bosky. As I said, it was really great. Very informative. And thank you so much to everyone else who's joined us on Facebook. Before we leave, I'd like to let you guys know that we do weekly online and on-site events in more than 100 cities. So if you want to find us on social media, you can find us across all channels at Product School. And be sure to keep up with the latest product management content on our blog, which is productschool.com/blog. And so thank you again, Bosky. And thank you everyone for joining us, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. And we'll see you next week.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks.